Hey, welcome back. So, in this section, what we're going to do is talk about resource propagation. So, to get you caught back up to speed with where we are, what we currently have right now is a hub and spoke architecture with a site to site VPN created that is connecting our on prem data center to our cloud data center. On top of our hub, we have our, where is it? We have our kind of primary workspace with the metastore, and then we are assigning that metastore out to our various workspaces. Now, at each workspace, we right now mainly just have our primary resources necessary for the data engineers. But we'd also talked about these scenarios where we might want to extend the amount of resources by maybe bringing in additional teams within a workspace. And so, what we want to do is kind of fan this process out a bit. So, if we take a look over the code, what we're going to do is bring in some additional users and groups. So, the first thing that I want to show you is our account. And what we have is really just myself. I'm kind of the global admin here. And then we've also got this kind of general data engineer as well. And so this general engineer also has administrative privileges. So what are we going to do? We want to make sure that we have more users first, more users and groups. So I'm going to go to my hub. Let's clear this up. So I'm in my unity.hub module, and what I'm going to do is open up my inactive folder, and I want to bring in a couple of groups, and each group is going to have their own users in it. So what we're doing is, let's take a look at group A first. So very similar to before, we're going to grab the Databricks group. This is going to be test A. We're going to create that. Next, we're going to add a Databricks user, and that Databricks user is one that already exists in Active Directory or Microsoft Intra. We're going to set this force to true, just in case the user already exists in another group. We don't want to stop that from bringing them in to Databricks. And this disable as user deletion, we're going to set that to false, meaning that if we have to delete this user later on through Terraform, that they don't just sit there with the disabled status, but they're actually fully removed from Databricks. Once we've created that user in that group, then we're going to just add the user to the group that we've created. We're doing the exact same thing for test group B and then test user B as well. So let's go ahead and apply this. We'll let this run for just a minute, and then when it's ready, we'll return to the video, but I'm going to go ahead and pause for just a minute. The plan looked good, so I went ahead and hit yes to apply. And so this should just create a few resources. You really see you've got 3 resources for each one, so it's going to be 6 in total. So basically a group, a user, and then a group membership, and then we're doing that for group A and for group B, so 6 total. And what this is going to do is hopefully create a couple of users and groups for us. So if we hop in here real quick, we have, and I don't know why it's holding on to this old version of this, but it's just holding on to this old ugly name. And we've got 2 users and 2 groups in here. And it's just saying within a group, we've got a member. So that's all that's going on there. So pretty basic. Okay, so now that we've kind of got that foundational piece there, the next thing that we want to do is think about our spoke. So if you remember, we had this conversation about pets versus cattle. And so what we initially did was we set up kind of that first level of, where is it? The first level of resources we used a CI/CD pipeline for, if you recall. And then I said we have the option of kind of piggybacking off that pipeline for the Unity catalog items, but we're kind of separating that out right now. So we are treating the underlying infrastructure as something that can go into a CI/CD pipeline. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and set that up. And so we're going to take a look over here at the unity.spoke, and I want to make sure to hop down then into one of my environments. So cd down into my dev environment. Let's clear this up so we've got a nice little kind of clear screen to work with. So within my spoke, what I'm going to look at is how do I propagate out? So there's not anything extra to build right now. If we take a look at kind of what we were building though, we saw that we had a metastore that we had assigned once, so we don't see any kind of for each loop here. But then we start seeing the for each loops in the rest of my code throughout this section. So I kind of got these, for each there, for each here, the grants for each. So we're kind of doing this for each. Where does that come from? Well, the for each is coming from a var. So it's the Databricks propagation var or variable. So I'm going to go to my variables, Databricks propagation. And so what am I doing? I am treating this variable as kind of a mapping of an object. And so we need to think about what objects are we mapping into this. Well, this is a variable, and I tend to populate my variables from somewhere. We've got my locals here. So this is my commons file, and that's one that's used for some common naming conventions and things like that. But then we've also got my plans. And so for nested loops, a lot of times what I'll do is I will send an object up the plan. And in this case, what I'm doing is I am doing a Databricks propagation as a variable. So I'm sending that up, but I'm grabbing it as a local. So if I go to my locals, what we have is Databricks propagation is essentially just an encoded JSON file. So I'm just grabbing this out of my configs. And if we pop up here to my configs, what I have is this file. So all of that to say, what I was essentially doing was looping through this file, and there's only the one object right now. So I really just created my resources one time. What I want to do is I want to actually rename this, and we'll just call this rename.original. And then I'll take this extended version. I'll rename this. And this is going to be the new database propagation file that I iterate through. And so what I'll do here is, now that I have those groups, I'm now going to iterate through. And so it will run through for my data engineers, my test group A, and my test group B. And then it will apply these configurations as it builds out. So let's go into my plans, and let's try this real quick in my dev environment. So we'll go down to dev, we'll see my plan. There shouldn't really be anything that I need to do here. So what we'll say is Terraform apply. Kind of minimize that configs file. I've got my modules here. Let's minimize that for just a minute. And we're really focused on not my dev plan, but my Unity catalog dev plan. I should backtrack that. There is, I don't want to apply my Unity catalog piece yet. I want to do this in my actual dev environment. So I apologize for that. When this gets down here to kind of the ready status, we're going to say no. Okay. So we'll backtrack just for a second. CD, one more time. I want to CD into my dev plan. Okay, so for this one, I do want to change my subscription. I want to go into dev. And what we're doing is just the spoke module. So the spoke module is what we're going to iterate through. So Terraform apply. And so what's this going to do? Well, it's going to build a connector basically for pretty much for each one of the items that are in that list. And then we're going to grab the name out of it. It's going to create a role assignment for each one of those connectors. Yes, 20 resources. We'll say yes. There's, I don't believe, any Databricks networking to do here, but it will create a key vault and a storage account for each one of those as well. So we'll give this just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while it builds out. All right, I'm back. So it looks like everything built in our dev environment. So what I'm going to do is let's just hop down a couple of directories real quick. So clear this up. We're going to say git status, git add, commit. We're going to say resource propagation. All right, git push. So what we're doing is just kind of pushing this up now. And so now what I want to do is hop up here to my PR Planet. Where I do all my PRs on my lab. Let's go on ahead and create a pull request. We're going to approve this pull request, so we're going to merge it. Give it just a second and merge the pull request and confirm it. Okay, so now we should have some actions that are about to kick off. Let's go take a look. So it's resource propagation. So now it's going to iterate through, and it should hopefully apply, with fingers crossed, without breaking at the QA or production environment levels. So let's take a quick peek and see what we have in dev now. So go to my dev workspace. Go to my catalogs. Refresh this. So there's not really anything here just yet, but I think it should be our dev environment, though, should now have some things for test group A. They've got their own key vault. Test group B has their own key vault. Test group A has their own access connector for Databricks, and so does test group B. What else do we have that we're looking for? I believe they should have their own lakes as well. So if we sort this by type, we've got test group A and test group B have their own storage accounts. So they've kind of got most of the building blocks that they're going to need that we can then put permissions on top of and catalogs and things of that nature. So this is building out, and while this is building out, let's also talk about kind of my looping strategy here, because I know that that was a little bit of a kind of a tricky topic to discuss. So when I think about looping within this, and I'm thinking about resources that are somewhat pet resources, these are things that store data that we don't want to lose. What I'm thinking about is how do we like take a look at the storage account, for example. How do we iterate through this with a for each loop? But we want to make sure that we don't just have a typical list where if we add or remove an item from the list in the wrong order, it doesn't break everything. So, for example, if we have this propagation list here, it's a JSON file. If we were to take this and move it up to a different location, so basically your group A and B are out of order, this could happen very, very commonly. So an example would be, this team, for whatever reason, rebrands and they leave the organization, they leave this project. Well, then this changes the order of the list. So this might still be fine, but the order of this is out of whack. Or let's just say that we add another group and they just decide, well, hey, we're just going to pop that group up front. Well, that changes the order of this list. The statefulness of Terraform would iterate through this list. It would see those items being in different positions, and then it would probably, for a lot of these items in the for each loop, it would try to rebuild them. It would basically say, well, hey, there's a different thing here in item position number 1 than there was previously. So if they looked at it as like a simple for each loop with item positioning, you change the item that's in a given position, then it's going to try to destroy this and rebuild it. And that's not what we want. So what I tend to do is I'm treating it as a variable, and I'm mapping that variable as an object of strings. I'm being very flexible with the values that are coming into this, and that way, where is it? With some of these, the locals I'm being a little bit more picky about. So if I go into my plans, for example, and I say if I go into dev, I go into my locals here. So I pick up the file, it's a JSON file, and I take that JSON file and I push it in here. Well, that JSON file then basically gets mapped up to my variables here. This mapping of objects is kind of what helps so that we care more about the key value pairing as opposed to the ordering of the objects in that loop. So that's kind of what's going on there. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video though while this builds out, and then I'll be back in just a few minutes when it's ready to go. All right, so our CI/CD pipeline is wrapping up. It's already applied for QA plan, QA apply, QA merge, prod plan, prod apply, and now it's wrapping up the prod merge. All in all, this is what, 20 seconds, 4 or 5 minutes, 13 seconds. So we'll say about 10 minutes in total to merge that up. So not too bad. All right, so next up, I guess we can go ahead and just double check some of those resources have built out. So we said we've got test A and test B. So we've got the key vaults and everything for the dev environment. If we go back to the dashboard and we take a look at the QA environment as well, let's do the same thing. So we've got our access connectors for Databricks. We've got our key vaults. We've got our storage accounts. Let's go back and do one more check for prod as well. So for prod, we've got the access connectors, the key vaults, and the storage accounts. So we've got the baseline resources there. The next thing that we want to do is set up our permissions and our catalogs and all the Unity catalog goodness. So what we're going to do is take a look over here at the Unity spoke again. All of that stuff has already been set up. So I just want to actually dig into applying that plan across the board for everything. So what we're going to do is change directory. So we're going to do a quick ls. We're going to change directories into plans. ls one more time. We're going to change directories into my unity.catalog folder. ls, and we're gonna cd into my dev. So clear this up. Remember, when we're doing our Unity catalog stuff, we're doing this as kind of like a centralized management. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that I am logged into my hub subscription. Oops. Let's grab that one more time. Okay, got that. Clear that up. Okay, so we should now just be able to run a Terraform apply. Let's see what we get. Again, this is kind of like that pet section around the catalogs and everything, so I want to be kind of close to this. You're not going to be running this piece all the time. So this is very closely related to what you'd be doing in something like Active Directory. It's just for Databricks instead of Active Directory. Okay, we'll say yes to this. We're bringing in 24 resources. So while that is applying at the dev level, let's run over here and let's just see what we've got. I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to go to my dev workspace. Let's check out the catalog for this, or catalogs that we have in here within the MetaStore. Okay, and so now what we have are these two test group catalogs, and we can see the permissions on these are for the test group. So they've kind of got, they don't have all permissions, but they have use and they have select. So that was pretty quick for that. We're going to hop back over to QA. We're going to do a Terraform apply on that. Remember, we're using that same subscription, so we're still approaching this logged in through the hub subscription. So we've got the dev version. We've got the, let's go ahead and build out the QA version for this as well. Give it just a minute. We'll say yes. We're almost done with this section. So one thing also to point out is right now we're just kind of giving this to the to this test group to use. What we might also want to do is allow we also might want to grant permission to our data engineers to kind of manage these catalogs as well, because they're probably going to be pushing data into it, but we can take a look at that later on. It's pretty easy to add that. Okay, so QA should be good now. Let's refresh this. So we're in the dev space. So we've got dev, we've got QA. Let's do one more. Let's cd into prod. And we'll say Terraform apply for prod. Let's give that just a minute. And also, I guess while we're waiting for this, let's just take a look at this workspace, the workspace bindings as well. So if I come to dev, let's catalog dev, take a look at the workspaces. Within this, this is, you see it's in the hub workspace, and then it's also the dev workspace. If I go to prod, it's kind of blocked off because it's kind of, we're working out of a different workspace. Same thing with QA. It's kind of hard to see what's going on here, but we do know that it's in the QA as well. Let's hop down here to the test group one. We'll take a look at the workspaces for this. We see that the workspaces for the test group A would be the dev Databricks workspace and then the hub Databricks workspace. So remember, I always want to be able to access these from the hub. And actually it might make more sense if I'm actually in the hub workspace because I have more control over it from there. So if I go to my catalogs, see nothing's grayed out here if I'm coming from the hub. So this is where maybe your data engineers are going to want to work out of. And so if I look at this one, I'm just kind of looking at this tail end, right? The dev part. So it's in the hub and it's also in dev. QA is in the hub and also QA. Let's come over here and apply this real quick for prod. So we'll be done with that. Same thing with dev. This is in the hub and the dev workspace, and then this other one, this test group B, is in the hub and in the QA workspace as well. And we can, if we wanted to cycle back through the permissions, we can see that this is for test group A. Well, that's who's got permission on it. Test group A, take a look at permissions, same deal. Test group B, we see the same principles here, which is that group. So that's kind of what we wanted to see, was that we have these resources created, we have these groups created for it. Let me refresh this. So we now have the prod, that prod just came in, and then we have the external data for these various groups as well. So what we're looking at now would be the storage credentials. So we've got the storage credentials for each group. I'm just calling it cred for credential, dash and the name of the group. So it's credential for test group A, for B, for A, for B, for A, for B. I think I got that out of order a little bit. Test group A, test group A, test group A, test group B, test group B, test group B. And then it's for the environment as well. And then what that does is that points to the various external locations. And so those external locations are going to be, just kind of got those named as the group underscore, and then kind of the catalog name that's associated with it, and just kind of points to their spaces within our storage account. So that we've kind of got the permissions isolated to some degree there. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers the propagation piece for this though. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it.